The evening sky stretches wide, a soft canvas painted with the delicate hues of twilight lavender, rose, and gold. The air is cool, refreshing, as the day exhales its warmth, and Ruth stands beside Naomi, the weight of the journey ahead settling in her heart like a gentle mist. There is a stillness that surrounds them, almost as if the world itself is holding its breath in reverence. The faint rustle of leaves in the trees is like a comforting whisper, speaking of the Creator's peace. Ruth's heart beats heavy with the sorrow of loss, yet there is a quiet resolve in her chest, a steady rhythm that tells her this is the right path, though it is uncharted. Her eyes linger on Naomi, whose face bears the lines of grief, yet there is a tenderness in her gaze that softens the hard edges of their sadness. The soft touch of Ruth's hand brushes Naomi's arm, a silent promise that her journey will not be walked alone. As their feet meet the earth with gentle thuds, the soil beneath them cool and smooth, there is a sacredness in their steps. With each step, the distance between their home in Moab and Bethlehem stretches longer, yet the bond between them seems to draw closer. Ruth's resolve becomes a silent prayer, whispered to the heavens with each footfall. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. The words fall quietly, like raindrops on thirsty soil, small but powerful, an unspoken covenant that settles deep in their hearts. The evening grows quieter. The hum of the earth becomes softer, as if the world itself is embracing them in stillness. The gentle breeze, cool on their skin, brushes against their hair, carrying with it the scent of the earth, the smell of fresh grass and wildflowers, and the distant whisper of God's creation. In this moment, Ruth knows she is not alone. God's presence, unseen but felt, surrounds them, like the glow of a hidden sun just beneath the horizon. The light of the fading sun spills across the path before them, painting the road ahead in a warm, golden hue. The gentle rustle of leaves above creates a symphony of sound, a melody so soft it mirrors the steady rhythm of their journey. Naomi, her footsteps light but weary, shares in the sacred silence, knowing that though the path ahead is uncertain, it is the path God has placed before them. As the sun dips lower, the first star appears in the sky, a lone beacon in the growing twilight, just as Ruth feels a spark of hope begin to grow in her heart. The darkness ahead may seem overwhelming, but it is in the night that God's promises are made clear, like stars that shine brightest when the world grows quiet. Ruth and Naomi walk on, each step drawing them closer to the unknown, yet certain of one thing: they are held in the quiet, loving embrace of God's plan. The path ahead may twist and turn, but the Lord's presence will guide them, like the soft glow of the moon rising in the distance, lighting the way. And so, they walk on, slow, deliberate, and filled with quiet faith, trusting in the one who leads them into tomorrow. The journey to Bethlehem stretches out before them like a gentle river, flowing slowly through the land. Ruth and Naomi walk side by side, their hearts aligned in faith and love. The rhythmic crunch of their footsteps on the dirt path is accompanied by the soft chirping of crickets as the evening creatures begin their songs. The air is warm but not heavy, carrying the earthy scent of the land, mingled with the delicate fragrance of wild herbs and flowers that grow along the edges of the fields. The world feels alive with God's presence, like a song sung by creation itself. As they enter a vast field of barley, the scene before them unfolds like a peaceful tapestry, lush, golden stalks of grain swaying gently in the breeze. Ruth pauses, her hands brushing against the ripe, warm grain. Each stalk seems to hum with life, the rustling sound it makes like a soft lullaby in the evening air. The sun, now lower in the sky, casts a warm, honeyed glow across the field, bathing the earth in a quiet radiance. The light is soft and forgiving, like God's love, a reminder that He provides for all, even in the most ordinary of places. Ruth's fingers glide through the barley, feeling the earth's pulse beneath her touch. The grains are cool and firm, the texture both simple and profound. She feels the weight of each moment settle in her heart. It's here, in the humble act of gathering grain, that Ruth begins to understand the beauty of the small, quiet moments of life, how God's plan weaves through them. Unseen but ever present. As Ruth's hands gather the barley, her gaze lifts. And there, among the workers, she sees him, Boaz. His figure stands tall, his presence warm and inviting, like the embrace of the earth itself. There is a peace about him, a stillness in his manner that draws her in, not with the rush of excitement, but with a deep sense of comfort and safety. His eyes, kind and full of wisdom, meet hers briefly, and in that quiet glance, Ruth feels a subtle reassurance, a reminder that God is with her, even in the most unexpected of places. Boaz speaks softly, his voice a smooth melody that cuts through the quiet of the field. "May the Lord bless you, Ruth," he says, his words like a gentle prayer, a benediction whispered into the evening. Ruth's heart stirs at the sound of his kindness, and she feels the weight of her grief lift, even if only for a moment. She knows, deep in her soul, that God's hand has guided her to this place, to this moment. His generosity is not just in the grain he offers, but in the respect and dignity with which he treats her. The simple act of offering her food, a gesture of grace and kindness, feels like a quiet blessing. It is as though God's love is pouring through Boaz, touching Ruth in a way that her heart, weary from loss, recognizes immediately. She is not alone. She is seen, and she is cared for. As the sun dips lower, casting the field in a warm golden light, Ruth feels a deep sense of peace wash over her. The light of the setting sun seems to pause in mid-her, holding the moment in a stillness that speaks to her. Spirit, it is as though God himself is smiling down upon her, gently reminding her that even in the mundane, his love is at work, creating a tapestry of grace. One small act at a time. Ruth continues to gather the barley, her heart now filled with quiet gratitude. The grains, once so simple, now feel like treasure symbols of the blessings God is bringing into her life. She feels the rhythm of her actions, the movement of her hands, the sound of the barley falling softly into her basket align with the rhythm of the world around her. The earth hums, the wind stirs, and Ruth understands that God's plan, though mysterious, is unfolding in every moment. As they finish for the day and the last light of the sun kisses the horizon, Ruth and Naomi begin their journey back. The world around them is filled with a peaceful quiet, the soft hum of the evening breeze, the distant sound of water flowing gently over stones, and the whispers of the leaves. Ruth's heart is light, and though the journey ahead is still uncertain, she feels the deep reassurance that God's love is guiding her, step by step. In the soft glow of the twilight, Ruth knows that this simple day, this quiet act of gathering grain, is a sign of something greater. God's hand, hidden in the smallest moments, is shaping her life in ways she cannot yet see, and the blessings that will come are already unfolding quietly, gently, and with love. As the days pass, the rhythm of life in Bethlehem settles into a quiet routine. Ruth and Naomi, though still carrying the weight of their past sorrows, find a sense of peace in the simplicity of their days. The warmth of the sun in the morning, the coolness of the evening air, and the steady work in the fields offer a quiet rhythm, one that mirrors the steady beat of a heart trusting in God's timing. Each morning, as the first rays of light stretch across the sky, Ruth steps outside and feels the soft earth beneath her bare feet. The coolness of the soil is comforting, grounding her in the present moment. She breathes in the freshness of the air, filled with the scent of dew on the grass, mingling with the earth's perfume, a fragrance that speaks of renewal, of new beginnings. The birds in the trees sing their morning songs, and the wind whispers through the leaves, as if carrying a message of peace from the heavens. Ruth listens to the quiet hum of the world around her, feeling the pulse of God's creation in every sound. Ruth's hands continue their work in the fields, gathering grain. With a steady, practiced motion, each stalk of barley she picks feels like a gift, a small act of faith and trust. The grains are firm and cool to the touch, their scent earthy and rich. The soft rustling of the barley as it falls into her basket is a gentle sound, like a lullaby, soothing her spirit and quieting her thoughts. Ruth finds herself growing more content with each passing day. The world may seem quiet, but she knows that in the stillness, God is at work. As evening falls, the air grows cooler, and the shadows of the day stretch long across the fields. Ruth and Naomi sit together in the quiet of their home, the flickering light of the fire casting soft shadows on the walls. The crackling of the fire, the faint scent of wood smoke, and the warmth that fills the room offer a sense of comfort, of security. Naomi, her face softened by the gentle glow of the firelight, speaks to Ruth in hushed tones, her voice filled with quiet anticipation. Naomi's heart, too, is stirred by the quiet movements of grace. She senses the hand of God gently guiding them, leading Ruth to a place of redemption and hope. Naomi shares with Ruth her thoughts of Boaz, the man who has shown them kindness in the field, the man whose heart seems as gentle as the breeze that blows through the barley. Naomi speaks of God's plan, of the possibilities that lie ahead. Ruth listens intently, her heart open, trusting in the God who has led her this far. As Naomi speaks of Boaz, a quiet stir of hope awakens in Ruth's heart. She has not yet fully realized the depth of God's plan, but she begins to feel that perhaps this man, this kind and noble man, will be part of the answer to her prayers. The words of Naomi's advice echo softly in Ruth's heart, a quiet call to take a step of faith, to trust in the ways of God, even when the path ahead is uncertain. That night, as the moon rises high in the sky, casting its soft light over the world, Ruth lies down beside Naomi, her heart quiet but full. The peace of the night fills the room, wrapping them both in the warmth of God's love. Ruth whispers a prayer, not out of desperation, but from a place of trust. Lord, I don't know the way, but I trust that you are with me. Lead me, guide me, and I will follow. The gentle rustling of the trees outside the window and the quiet hum of the night provide a soothing soundtrack to Ruth's prayer. The peace of the Lord settles over her like a soft blanket, and her soul finds rest in His presence. As she drifts into sleep, Ruth is not alone in her quiet contemplation. In the stillness of the night, she feels God's love wrapping around her, like the warm embrace of a father who holds his child close. She knows that the redemption she seeks will not come in the way she expects, but that it will come in God's perfect timing, through His perfect plan. As the days of harvest pass and the seasons shift gently, Ruth's heart remains steadfast, her faith unwavering. The rhythm of her work in the fields has become familiar, a soothing cycle of simple acts that have brought a deep sense of peace to her soul. The golden barley sways in the breeze like a sea of light, and Ruth's hands move through the grains with ease, gathering them into her basket. The smell of the earth, rich and sweet from the recent rains, mingles with the scent of fresh barley and the soft perfume of wildflowers growing along the edges of the field. Every moment in the fields feels like an offering, an act of surrender, as Ruth places her trust fully in God's plan. In the quiet of the afternoon, Ruth's gaze drifts toward the horizon, where the sky is painted with shades of blue and soft pinks. The air carries the fragrance of evening dew, cool and fresh against the warmth of the day. The earth hums gently beneath her feet, the sound of life and creation filling the silence. The world is at rest, and Ruth feels, deep in her spirit, that this peace is a gift, a sign that God is guiding her steps. One evening, as the sun begins to sink low behind the hills, Naomi calls Ruth to her side. The evening light casts long shadows across the land, and the world feels still, holding its breath as the night prepares to settle in. Naomi's voice is soft yet filled with a quiet urgency as she speaks of a plan and idea that Ruth had not yet considered, but one that seems to come from deep within the silence of God's will. The air is cool as Ruth listens, the words of Naomi settling over her like a soft, gentle blanket. The idea is simple yet profound: to seek out Boaz in the quiet of the night, to lay herself at his feet, and to trust in God's direction. Naomi's voice is calm, her words a steady, gentle river that flows into Ruth's heart, offering a sense of peace and clarity. The evening grows darker, and Ruth feels a stirring within her, a quiet call to step forward in faith. Even though the path ahead is uncertain, as the moon rises, casting its soft, silver light over the land, Ruth prepares herself for this quiet step of trust. The night air is cooler now, carrying the sweet scent of the earth's evening breath, crisp and alive. The sky above is deep with stars, each one a reminder of the promises of God, shining bright and steadfast in the quiet darkness. The night is full of promise, and Ruth feels God's presence moving gently within her, urging her forward. In the stillness of the night, Ruth approaches the threshing floor where Boaz lies, a quiet figure under the vast expanse of the sky. The soft crunch of the earth beneath her feet is the only sound that fills the night air, a rhythm that matches the steady beat of her heart. She reaches Boaz's side and, as Naomi had instructed, lies down at his feet, her heart filled with trust and quiet anticipation. The world around her feels suspended in time, as if the very air is holding its breath, waiting for God's response. For a moment, everything is still silent and sacred. Ruth's breath is steady, and the night embraces her in its cool, gentle arms. The stars above twinkle softly, like the glimmer of hope that rests deep within Ruth's heart. She whispers a silent prayer, entrusting herself fully to God's will, knowing that whatever happens next will be part of His divine plan. In this quiet, sacred moment, Ruth surrenders her fears, her doubts, and her hopes to the Lord, trusting that He is at work, even in the smallest of actions. The night stretches on, the stillness wrapping itself around Ruth like a comforting cloak. Then, Boaz stirs in his sleep, his movements slow and deliberate, as if guided by the same quiet hand that has led Ruth all this way. His voice, soft and warm, breaks the silence, and Ruth feels the weight of his words of kindness and grace that flow through the night like the softest of winds. He tells her that he has noticed her faithfulness, her loyalty to Naomi, and that he will do all that is necessary to bring about the redemption that has been promised. In that moment, Ruth feels a rush of gratitude fill her heart, overflowing like a river of peace. The quiet of the night, the gentle presence of Boaz, and the words of God's promise wrap around her, and she knows, with every fiber of her being, that this moment is a turning point. The redemption she has longed for, the peace she has sought, is beginning to take shape. The night slowly gives way to the first light of dawn, the soft glow of the sunrise painting the sky in delicate hues of pink and gold. The air is fresh and cool, carrying the fragrance of the earth, awakening to a new day. As Ruth walks back to Naomi's side, her heart is light, her steps steady. The gift of redemption is no longer a distant dream, but a tangible reality unfolding before her, one step at a time. And though she does not yet know all the details, Ruth feels the deep assurance that God is with her, that His love will never leave her, and that His plan will lead her home. As the story of Ruth reaches its tender conclusion, the land is bathed in the gentle light of a new day. The dawn breaks softly, painting the sky with hues of gold and pink, as if the heavens themselves are celebrating the beginning of a new chapter in Ruth's life. The cool morning air carries the scent of fresh earth and the sweetness of blossoming flowers, filling the space with a deep, peaceful fragrance that speaks of renewal and hope. The world seems to exhale, quiet and content, as Ruth takes in the stillness of the moment. The earth hums with life, its steady pulse a reminder of God's eternal presence. Ruth stands by the fields once more, but today is different. Today, the grain she gathers is not just barley, it is the fruit of her faith, her loyalty, and her unwavering trust in God's plan. Each step she takes, each grain she collects, is filled with the quiet joy of knowing that she is no longer alone on this journey. God's hand has guided her step by step, and now, the full blessings of His grace are unfolding before her eyes. Boaz's voice, warm and steady, carries across the field as he speaks of the redemption that has been set in motion. Ruth's heart swells with gratitude, the soft rhythm of her breath matching the peaceful beat of the world around her. As Boaz's words settle into her soul, a deep sense of peace fills her, one that is not bound by circumstance, but by the love and grace of God that has followed her through every trial, every loss, and every quiet moment of faith. She stands there, her hands gently holding the grain, her heart gently cradling the promise of the future. The days pass, and Ruth and Boaz's union grows, not just in the bond of love, but in the fullness of redemption. As the weeks unfold, the air grows warmer, the earth more fragrant, as if nature itself is rejoicing in the blessings that God has poured out upon them. The fields are lush, the barley swaying gently in the breeze, a golden sea that reflects the peace that now fills Ruth's heart. At night, Ruth and Naomi sit together, the flickering light of the fire casting soft shadows on their faces. The warmth of the fire wraps around them like a comforting embrace, and the crackling of the flames fills the silence with a gentle rhythm. Ruth's heart is at rest, her soul quiet and full, knowing that the Lord has brought her to this place, to this moment of grace. She whispers a prayer, not of longing, but of gratitude, a quiet thanks for the love that has found her, for the grace that has redeemed her, and for the peace that now rests in her heart. The moon rises high in the sky, its soft light casting a gentle glow over the world. Ruth lies down beside Naomi, her heart full of love and hope for the future. The night is still, the world wrapped in the comforting embrace of God's presence. Ruth feels the deep assurance that no matter what comes next, she is held in the love of the one who has brought her through the darkest of times. She closes her eyes, and the peace of the Lord fills her soul, like a river flowing gently through her being, washing away all fear, all doubt, and all sorrow. In the quiet stillness of the night, Ruth falls into a restful sleep, her heart at peace. The world around her is calm, the only sound the gentle rustling of the trees and the soft murmur of the wind. And in that peaceful silence, Ruth knows that she is exactly where God wants her to be. His redemption has come not through her own strength, but through His perfect grace. As she drifts deeper into sleep, the love of God wraps around her like a warm embrace, and the fullness of grace settles deeply into her soul. Ruth is no longer the woman who walked in sorrow, but one who now walks in the fullness of God's love, redeemed, restored, and at rest in His perfect peace.